Welcome, everybody. We have some new faces and some returning faces, so it's great to see all of you. So what we've done is we actually have two, I guess, audiences, if you will, right? So Nicole and I usually do multifamily because that's kind of our expertise. I did single family a long time ago, and Nicole still continues to kind of dabble in it, if you will. But then Jane and Sharon, who are on screen right now, they are the residential experts, and they usually teach on the single family stuff. And they've done over 100 deals, very, very successful, do virtual stuff and stuff like that. So it's great. Every once in a while, we'll find a subject where we think it brings value to both the multifamily side and the single family side. And one of those was identifying markets. So we figured we just make this a little bit longer. Usually we teach for like 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes, and then do the rest in questions and answers for a half hour. And then we go on to residential. And some people come from multifamily and they stay for residential. And some people from residential come from multifamily. So it's kind of a mixed bag, if you will. But today we're just going to go from, now until whenever I finish. We'll do some answers, and that'll complete kind of the presentation of the teaching, if you will, for both sides. And Jane and Sharon are going to jump in terms of residential as we kind of move along. So Nicole and I started teaching Tuesdays about a year, because Nicole started teaching about multifamily about 11 years ago. About 6 or 7 years ago, I actually took her course, and then we actually took the course that was live and actually put it online so everyone can kind of take advantage of it. And then part of kind of that give back, and also obviously to promote the class to make sure that people don't get hurt, because multifamily is fantastic, but just like anything else, if you don't know what you're doing, it can be painful. So we started teaching Tuesdays once a week to kind of give back, promote the opportunities and stuff like that. And then on the residential side, we have the virtual REI Academy, which is, can I do this? Let's see, right here. Which is usually, like it says here, at 7:30 after the 6:31, but obviously today we're going to do them together. And the awesome thing about the Academy is what happened was people came to us after watching the multifamily and said, wow, you guys did a really nice job. Do you think you'd be able to do something like that for single family? So we ended up getting, I think it was 15 instructors, all full-time, super successful investors. And they all teach different classes on different strategies, how to take control of a property with basically, no money out of your pocket, or using somebody else's money, or land trusts, or a bunch of different strategies that are on there. I think there's 45 or 46 classes, and you kind of just go through them at whatever level you want, kind of thing. So that's been really successful. Very excited about that. And we did the same thing with Teaching Tuesdays for that. We started that to kind of help out to introduce the Academy. So, okay, so finding your best real estate markets. So the portfolio currently runs across 11 states. We don't manage any of our own properties, right? We have property managers manage their own properties. Somebody I was talking to actually today, my recommendation to him was, listen, you can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's your business, but if you spend a lot of time managing your properties, number one, you're probably going to get burnt out. And number two, if you're spending all your time managing your properties, how are you going to go out and buy another one or scale? It can be very difficult. And kind of a proof in point, I met with a friend of mine last night, and who's in Baltimore, very successful. And some lady just gave him 2 houses over in Brooklyn. She's like, I'm tired of the tenants. I can't do this anymore. Just take over the payments. I'm done. And they've each got like 100 grand in equity, but that's to the point where she got just dealing with tenants. So that's kind of what we do, right? We always recommend, and again, it's your business. You do what you want. But having said that, if you're going to have property managers, you may want to expand your markets to other parts of the country, a couple hours away, across the country, whatever it may be. We have recommendations for our students in terms of what we think is probably most appropriate. But the idea here is really for anything that you do, real estate related, as you move on, The idea is to do the job once and then create passive income for the rest of your life and your kids' lives and your kids' kids and stuff like that. And, you know, as much as I enjoyed flipping and stuff like that, and you can make a lot of money doing all sorts of different things. I know that Jane and Sharon do tremendously well with lots of different strategies. At some point, though, you start deciding that, you know, something, maybe I'll keep some of these for myself. And the goal is to, if you do it properly, and I can't speak for residential because I don't have any residential rentals, but if you do multifamily property and you stabilize the property, now it may take you 12 to 18 months to actually stabilize it so it's running properly, you should not have to spend more than an hour to maybe 2 hours a month. That's not a day or a week, but a month, looking at the financials that the property management gives you and just checking to make sure you're on track. And if not, you pick up the phone, you have a meeting with them, and you kind of redirect them. But it's there's no such thing as totally passive income, right? I don't know if it exists, but this is about as passive as you can get. But you do have to do the work, and you do have to do it right, and you do have to do it up front. So one of the biggest questions we get, so we just started 3 people in the last couple of weeks, and all of them ask the same thing: how do I identify my market, right? So not all markets are the same. They're and actually, I don't have well, let me do this, because like Nicole, I kind of ramble on. So maybe, can you guys tell me when I get to 7:30, Jane and Sharon? Yes, thank you. So there's all sorts of market, right? So you have markets that are growing, you know, very aggressively. You have markets that are more stable, and you have markets that are shrinking, right? So for us, we focus yes, on growing markets, but the competition there gets pretty hot just because everyone hears about them and all the people go there, and it's supply and demand, right? Everyone's trying to get the same building or whatever it is, and the price goes up. So we like stable markets. We do not like shrinking markets for the obvious reason that, you know, your tenant base is going down, right? So the less tenants you have, the harder it is to rent out. There's more competition for the same tenants. So growing and stable, fantastic. Shrinking, we don't go near. We also focus on small to mid-sized cities, so what they call secondary or tertiary markets. The idea there is there aren't as many of the really big players in those markets, especially the tertiary markets, because there just isn't enough there for them. So, you know, a hedge fund or something like that is probably not going to go into York, Pennsylvania, right? Or, I don't know, Blacksburg, Virginia, or something like that, right? They will go into DC, and they will sometimes go into Baltimore, and they will go into New York and stuff like that. But, you know, the prices reflect that. You know, the cap rates are incredibly low. Even with the high interest rates, they're still very low. So for us, it's much easier to find deals in secondary and tertiary markets or middle or small cities. You do sometimes have to look a little bit harder for property management solutions. And property management, and some of you have heard us say this probably 50 times, but property management is how you execute your business plan. And if you can't find a good property management company, at least for us, if we can't find a good one, we'll walk away from the deal. It's that important. So you will have to look a little bit harder because the markets are smaller. They're out there, but you do have to do your due diligence and interview them properly. So what we recommend is you pick 7 to 10 markets when you start, right? And then kind of hone those down over the first couple of months down to 3, right? So in terms of the 3, we usually recommend your home base, because you know that you've lived there, you know the area, you know, good area, bad area, what's high, what's low, that kind of thing. Maybe another area that you grew up in, or you have friends that live there, you have boots on the ground, if you will, is the second one. And then the third one can be anywhere you want. You know, if you decide, like for me now, my limit is a 4-hour drive from where I live south of Baltimore and north of DC, right? Because I figure I can drive there in 4 hours, or I can fly there in 30 minutes, but by the time I go through TSA and rent a car and stuff like that, it ends up being 4 hours. So that's kind of my limit right now. But you can go, I mean, you know, Jane and Sharon have stuff all over Indianapolis, and that's not a 4-hour drive. Maybe it's a 5-hour drive. How long is that drive? It's a little bit longer.
In Indiana, like probably 16.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty far from us.
Yeah, a little far for us. So anyway, that's kind of what we recommend. So what are some key ingredients that we look for? And obviously we like to try and find all of these, right? Sometimes you will, but those are going to end up being really the booming markets where competition is really stiff and the prices are really high. So in no particular order, right? Well, I shouldn't say that. The first two are the most important when you first look at a market, right? But then after that, everything kind of falls. It could be, number 7 could be number 2, 3, or whatever it may be. So job growth, right? Job growth means that people are moving into the area and bringing income into the area. And at the same time, they're probably bringing other jobs into the area. At the same time, a lot of times that'll drive population growth. Sometimes population growth is not driven by job growth. That's why it's listed separately there. Sometimes you can have an area that people are moving to retire to because the tax base is less, or it's a beautiful area that they want to move to. Now with a lot of people doing the work from home, a lot of people are moving out of the bigger metropolises and moving out an hour and a half, 2 hours away, working from home and going into the office once a week or something like that. So sometimes a lot of those towns, the jobs aren't going there, but the people that work the jobs in the markets, in the main markets, actually move out there. So median household income growth, you want to see at least a little bit of growth. The challenge obviously is if you see the median income going down, right? I mean, your job is to, rent living spaces to families and individuals. And if their income's going down, the chances of being able to keep up with inflation when you raise your rents are probably pretty small. So you definitely don't want that. Things to look out for are companies as they're moving in, right? They're bringing in new jobs, they're breaking ground, they're doing all sorts of stuff. And there's some cautions we'll talk about later. Online newspapers, magazines, in some of the really, really small towns, they actually still have like a regular newspaper as their main mode of, how stuff gets announced and stuff like that. So if you have a really small town, you have an interest. If they don't have an online version, which most of them do, but if they don't have one, then obviously you should probably subscribe. Universities, government, and healthcare are always good. They're kind of stabilizing forces in a market. Economic development councils or chambers of commerce. Most towns have a chamber of commerce. A lot of places also have an economic development council, and they're basically what helps drive businesses into that area. And if you bring in businesses, you bring in jobs, more people need places to rent, etc. And then path of progress we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. All right, so the annual job growth, okay. If you take COVID out of the equation, right? The average annual national average is 1.5% per year, okay? So you have to be careful because as we came out of COVID, all these jobs started coming up. So you could look at a town and it's like, oh my gosh, 10% increase in job growth. That's amazing. But what you don't see is they were down 20%, right, when COVID hit. So what I usually end up doing is I'll look a couple of years before COVID, and then in this last year, maybe I'll go back to 2022 or whatever it is, and I'll try and get a trend line and decide, okay, have they been trending for those 2 or 3 years up or down? And it's okay if it's like 4 years and it's like up, down a little bit, then up, up. That's fine because everyone goes through kind of a dip or whatever it is. But I would be cautious if you see, and you can do this actually pretty easily. You look up St. Louis, Missouri population on Google, and it'll actually give you a graph for the last 20 years saying this is where they started and this is where they are now, or this is where they started and this is where they are now, kind of thing. So it's not that hard to look up. Every white collar job increases the population by additional 2 blue collar or service jobs. So obviously if a area is growing more with kind of tech jobs and stuff like that, that might be a better market because it won't be just one person moving, or one household moving. It can be 3 households moving. So something to look out for as well. You want low historical unemployment, whereas wherever possible within 2 points of the national average where you can. Again, COVID kind of threw a wrench in a lot of stuff, but you kind of want to keep that in the back of your mind. If you see a place that has consistently high unemployment, something's going on, right? Maybe you don't want to be in that area. So Baltimore, years and years ago, used to have an incredibly robust, I guess, manufacturing area with the steel companies, and the steel companies closed down, and then unemployment went through the roof, right? Because so many people were employed by it, which kind of goes to the next point, which is diversity of jobs, right? You need to have some diversity of jobs. You don't want all the jobs coming out of one area, because if something happens to that area, all your tenants go away, right? So you want like, 30% here, 40% there, 10% here, whatever it is. Usually the rule of thumb is you really don't want to have more than 40% of an industry dominating that market. And I'll give you an example here. Let me go back for a second. So several years ago, it's been a while now, North Dakota started to explode because of all the fracking, right? It was a cheaper way to make oil. It was relatively easy to obtain, right? You didn't have to go on the water or anything like that. You could do it on land. You could go to places that didn't have a lot of population, so there weren't a lot of restrictions and stuff like that. And everybody went bananas. And I got a couple of deals sent my way for, I think it was like, I don't know, 100 apartment units in, I think it was like Bismarck or something like that. I can't remember. And then something else, some sort of mobile home park, which we like, and stuff like that. And they underwrote it as if they would underwrite a regular property in a regular area. And we passed on it. And my main thought process was, what happens if fracking goes away? And a lot of people were like, oh my God, it's not going anywhere. Are you kidding me? It's going to be fantastic. And so here's kind of what happened, right? So fracking, usually it takes about 60, and these are old data, right? So I'm not sure what it is now, but it used to be oil needs to be above $60 a barrel for it to be worthwhile to actually do fracking, right? And if you look here, right, all of a sudden they were riding high. Oh my gosh, fracking's fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Then at this year, it plummets to 50, right, 60, and then it keeps going down. It just breaks 60 right around here, and then it goes back down again. And obviously, over the last couple of years, it's going again. But if this is 2010 to 2020, this is like a 7-year period, right? When all those jobs, for the most part, went away. People couldn't frack. It didn't make any sense. So a lot of those places, went upside down. So I guess the lesson learned there is to make sure that you have more than just one industry, because if you depend on one industry, kind of like what's going on with the battery factories now, they're starting to stop construction on them. And if you go into a town like in South Carolina, and that their big claim to fame is, we're going to get GM to build this huge battery plant here, and that's all they have. GM just announced that they're pulling back, right? They're not ready to build right now. So something to watch out for. So population growth, again, you want consistent growth. National average is about a point. So you want it to be a little bit higher than that. If it's a smaller city, so if you look at Los Angeles, 1% is a huge amount of people. If you look at Idaho Falls, that has 70,000 people, 1% is not that many people, right? So the smaller the town, the higher you want that percentage to be. And you don't just want it, 1 or 2 years, kind of that example of Bismarck, right? Not only did they have just one industry, but they just had really spiked over the last year or so. And people were saying, oh, look, they spiked in the last year, let's go buy something. You don't want that. You want 3, 4, 5 years of consistency. You're always looking for trend lines. And then people obviously tend to move where there's something that makes a place desirable, whether it's a job or something else. And what makes your market stand out? When you look at your market, think about, would I want to live here? Even if it's a neighborhood, right? I mean, look at it that way, right? So would I want to live in this neighborhood? Or would I feel safe in this neighborhood? Or does this town have any kind of the amenities that people like me would be looking for? Whatever that is, right? It doesn't matter. When I bought my first mobile home park, I was like, wow, man, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd live here. But then I got used to it. It's like, something, this is actually pretty nice. Some of those mobile homes are really nice. I mean, like, 1,200, 1,500 square feet, and they got, granite countertops and all sorts of stuff. So once you get to know the assets, you'll kind of change your mind on what's acceptable and what's not. But that's just something to kind of think about, what makes your market stand out. and then don't get caught up in the hype, right? Kind of like fracking. So WeWork has been in the news recently, right? So WeWork, I think most people know what it is. Before you don't know, what they do basically is they say, okay, Mr. Landlord, I'm going to come in and I'm going to rent these 2 floors of your building, and then I'm going to cookie cut it up, and then I'm going to rent out those desk spaces or those mini offices to other people that want to work remote, or some small company that only has 3 people, whatever it was, and then we'll make our money on the spread, right? And it wasn't a very good business model. And a couple people called that out back in 2018, 2019, saying, look, this doesn't make sense. When they went public, their value shot up to $47 billion, right? Last year, it went down to 5, and I don't know where it is now, but it's down to, 3% of what it used to be valued at, because people got caught up in the hype. They didn't really look at the numbers. So we encourage you to do the same thing. Data doesn't lie, right? All right, so median household. We do mostly B and C apartments, okay? So when we look at median households for within a 3-mile range of where we're going to actually look for a property, or just an area of a town or a town in general, we want to land somewhere between $35,000 and $75,000. It can be higher than that, that's fine, but not lower than 35 is our general idea. We want to see the median income grow by a couple of points every year to show that there's a trend line going up. A lot of times when you get offering memorandums from big companies like Marcus & Millichap and CBRE and stuff like that, I would encourage you to keep those, or put them on your hard drive or whatever it is, because they've got a ton of really good information on the markets. And even though you may not be interested in their 300-unit trophy product, you might be interested in that town, and then you have something you can go back to and kind of look at and kind of get some ideas. So one of the reasons that the income level for the household is so important is for this reason, right? So do your demographics for the locality that you're going to purchase your asset in meet your business plan, right? So this is, and this is being pushed all the time because rents have gone up. But so let's say, for example, it's a 1-person household and they make $35,000 per year, right? If that a 2-person household and they each made 35, then it'd be $70,000 per year, right? But this is just 1 person by themselves. You divide it by 12 months, which is $2,900. You multiply by 30%. And on average, most landlords, this is how much you have to make or more to be able to rent the facility from them, right? Some people do 25%, some people do a little bit higher. The national average is 30%. So when you look at your building and say, wow, this is awesome, rents are at $825, and I think that I'm going to be able to raise the rents to $925, so this is a great deal. Well, if you start doing the math, you're like, well, wait a minute, if I use just the rule of thumb, I'm not going to be able to rent nobody's going to qualify for my rent. I'm going to have to let people in that are really kind of strapped and maybe can't afford it. And the challenge that we found with that, because we, some of the mobile home parks, when we take them over, are not in very good shape. And what a lot of times what people have done is they've let in people with like 2 times, right? Or 0.2 of their income. And what happens is, and it's very sad, if they miss 1 payment, they are not catching up. There is no way they're going to catch up. They have to move out, and that's sad, right? So better for you as a landlord to make sure that you do 0.3 or above, or it's better for them too, because you don't put them in a position where all of a sudden the sheriff is out front taking their stuff out of the mobile home or the apartment. I've seen both, and it's not a pretty picture. So all right, so this is my PSA, right? So I guess this is an ISA, investor service announcement. So the typical US renter spends about 30%, which is what we just did, income on rent, right? And that's 30% of gross. So before you take any taxes out or something like that, right? And some of the bigger cities, more expensive cities, LA, San Francisco, New York, 37% of their income is you spent on rent, right? And that is pre-tax income. So the investor service announcement is, if you really want to make progress on building wealth, try and limit your rent or your mortgage to 30% of your after tax income. It's a much different number. But it's the whole idea behind kind of living below your means, right? So somebody sent me, it was Nicole actually that sent me this email. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. All right, so this, if I can open it. All right, so this is by Smart Assets, and this is if you want to create wealth, this is what they recommend, right? So $50,000 times 3% is, what is that, $1,500? Is that right? That sound about right? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes, right? So using the regular 30% rule, this person could actually afford up to $1,500. But what they're recommending and what we recommend in terms of building wealth is do it after tax. So you could take FICA, and let's say 10% tax in this tax bracket or something like that, Obamacare and a couple of other things. It brings down your income to like 3738, and then 30% of 3738 is about 923. So that's what we encourage everyone to do. So we'll kind of leave that alone. That's our public service announcement, and we'll kind of move on from there. How am I doing on time, ladies?
7:03.
Awesome. All right, so whoops, wrong one. All right, hold on. Let me find what happened to it? Hold on. Too many windows open.
That's what we do. Once we go off kilter there, then just can't find
what
it.
happened to it? What happened? Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Okay, sorry, too many windows. All right, so that's our pitch. All right, so companies moving to the area, company announcements, you see them online, you see them in the newspaper, you talk to the Chamber of Commerce, you Google recent announcement of jobs coming, and make sure it's more than a plan. So 2 instances, Amazon going into a section of Queens, big push against it. There was this huge thing about Amazon taking bids from all over the country. It was like a smell dunk. A lot of investors went into that part of Queens and decided they were going to buy a bunch of properties. And then they got a lot of pushback from the local government. And they said, we're not doing this, right? So make sure it's more than a plan. The more recent one is the big battery factories that are being built in the Carolinas that GM just said, something, the demand for EVs is a lot slower than we thought it was. So that, whatever it was, I don't know, 800,000 square foot plant that's going to employ like 3,000 people, we're going to put it on hold. So just make sure that you get as much information about the certainty of those new jobs coming into the markets. Online newspapers, magazine articles, you can set up a Google alert for your market and specifically tell it what keywords to look for. Lots of articles on livability, affordability, weather, cost of living. And again, as I mentioned before, why would someone want to stay or move into your market? And several of you have heard me use this example before, but for those who haven't, we looked at an 82-unit property in Bennettsville. What was it? Oh yeah, Bennettsville, it's right there. Duh. So in Bennettsville, South Carolina, and we had an LOI, we had a signed LOI, we're ready to move forward. And then while I was doing research online, it turns out that the hospital that was one of the main employers, one of like 3 or 4, it turns out a regional hospital had bought them and they were going to close the hospital down. So we ended up backing out of the deal for that and a couple of other things that came up during due diligence. But just because you identify a market and will go to buy something, you really need to keep up to date in terms of what's going on in that specific market. Recession hedges. Some people say we're in a recession. Some people were going into recession. Some people are like, we're totally fine. I don't know. But usually places with these industries are a little bit, not recession proof, but they are affected with less huge ups and downs than other towns that don't have this. So universities, healthcare facilities, and any kind of state or government office. Chambers of Commerce, we kind of talked about this a little bit before. Economic development offices in a lot of places have some really, really lonely people. You can go in there and they will tell you everything that they're trying to do to bring business into the area and what parts of the city or county or whatever it is are growing the most or whatever it is. They're a wealth of information. So I encourage you, if they have them in the town or area that you're going into, to reach out to them. Chamber of Commerce, the same thing. Reach out to them, find out what's going on. It's a great read on the community and what's happening. And if you really kind of get to have someone that really will tell you a lot of stuff, you will be amazed at what some people will tell you that you never would have found out in a newspaper or an online article and stuff like that. So we encourage everybody to actually go to that office or the Chamber of Commerce. And then when you talk to them, actually also tell them, hey, what's your track record, right? Like Florence, North Carolina, or South Carolina, I can't remember right now, does really, really well. And we check them out. A lot of places were moving into Florence, and when I checked about 6 months ago, they're still moving in there. So they've got a really, really good track record. And then the last thing is really path of progress, right? So path of progress just means the direction that the population growth or the expansion is going, right? So for those of you that are local to the area, I've lived in this area for a long time, where I lived down in DC for a long time. And then DC, like the neighborhood used to be Rockville, right? And then Rockville got expensive. So then it went out to Gaithersburg. All this is along the same highway, right? 270. And then Gaithersburg got too expensive. So people moved to Germantown. And then Germantown got too expensive and they moved out to Urbana or Frederick. And it's continuing to happen. So that would be considered a path of progress, right? Same thing is happening over here between DC and Baltimore, right? Whereas a lot of those towns in between were smaller. Now, because the place continues to grow, that middle part is becoming almost one large metro. That's in the path of progress. And what you'll notice in Baltimore, if you go up towards York, because it's like 25, 35, 45 minutes outside of Baltimore, people live in York, Pennsylvania, and they commute into Baltimore on Route 83. It happens all the time. So the path of progress is going up that way. So you can find that out kind of from those offices. Brokers are good sources. Property management companies are good sources. And rehabbers are good sources. If you go into a town that you're not familiar with, I would encourage you to join the local RIA and reach out to the people in the RIA and ask the RIA people, hey, you know something, where are all the rehabbers going, right? So a long time ago, it used to be Capitol Heights, used to be really, really hot. I don't know what it is now. It's been years and years, but rehabbers knew about it. So if there are a lot of them in there, you're thinking, well, that place is growing because all the rehabbers are in there. Not just one or two, but quite a few of them. So something to look for. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. We actually created an article that kind of goes over all this. If you want that, obviously just email us here at support@passivecashflowforlife.com. And at the same time, if you have any questions, obviously we can open up now. Now, a lot of this stuff for residential, and I guess we didn't really plan this very well because Jane and Sharon did not jump in and I did not take a breath. So I apologize for that. But Jane and Sharon, do you want to kind of hop in and talk about your experiences with all the different markets that you're in? Because you're like in 11 markets, right?
Yeah, you did fantastic.
Yeah, everything you said, what he said.
But um, yeah, you brought up the same points. I mean, we look at the same things. We look at the crime in the area, the school systems, like medical and hospitals, just like pretty much how you did it. Some of the things you go even deeper into it than we go into it, like the rates of the employment rates and the white collared workers, whether and that's distribution with white and blue collar workers and all that. That's pretty in depth.
And some of that's because we only might have a couple houses, whereas if you have a multifamily, obviously you need to have 100 people that have those jobs and whatever. So we might only have a couple. And I guess like because the way we find our deals, a lot of it is we do it after the fact, so we might find a pretty good deal, and then we look for our boots and then do the research, and then once we find some boots on the ground and go take a look at it, and then we've done the research, but we might only have to fill 1 or 2 houses. It's not gonna be, a 100-unit mobile home park or apartment complex like you guys do. So that's probably a little bit of the difference of why we don't go quite in depth, but
And oftentimes we do reverse engineer. We find the tenant before we find the house. We know, like, example, Warner Robins in Georgia, we have a group of people that are ready to move into those houses once we acquire houses there. So there are some markets that we, just have lists of people that, so that might be another way you want to look at it. And you're right, with businesses, you really have to make sure you're not basing your decision on one hot business in the area. We do Gary, Indiana, and luckily there's other businesses in there to support it, but Amazon was going in there and we were all excited because it was, obviously boosted up tremendously. And they decided to go to a different area about, what, 45 minutes away?
right, I think they actually went in, decided it didn't work for them, and then went 45 minutes out of the town, or maybe even a little bit closer to Chicago. So that kind of like pop that balloon. But there's still everybody, there's people there. Everybody needs a place to live, and because we didn't have 100 houses sitting on the sidelines, that definitely, some other little things that were going to come on the heels of Amazon, that obviously that put the skid on that.
And another thing that we look at too is areas where are people living in one area but commuting to a different area for work. Like, there's some places in like Western Maryland and different areas of Maryland where they live there in the suburbs, but they commute back and forth to and around DC. So, that's another thing to look for.
Absolutely. So what we've got up here is these are every Tuesday, 6:30 and then 7:30, and obviously today we did both of them at 6:30. This is the Academy website. If you have any questions, you can reach out to support@virtualreiacademy.com, and either myself or Jane and Sharon will get right back to you. And then I don't have, because I can't do 2 things at once. I haven't been able to paste into chat, but I will here in a couple of minutes when we start getting questions and stuff like that. And that obviously is the YouTube channel. All of the Teaching Tuesdays, there's a playlist on there. So this will go up probably Thursday. And it'll go up on both of them, both the Academy and on Passive Cash Flow. So if you want to watch this again or something like that, or refer it or whatever it is, please obviously go to that link. And then the same thing for the Passive Cash Flow for Life. Oh, you know what? That's one thing I forgot. All right, so these are the websites. That's a QR code for the course if you have an interest in that, where we go into a lot more depth about this. We also have and it's interesting, the guy that called me today, Langston, actually just watched our free webinar and loved it, and really got a lot out of it. So if you follow that bit.ly Passive Wealth webinar, it'll take you there. It's got a ton of information on it. And it's probably an hour and a half long, maybe a little bit longer, but it's free, and you get to learn for free. And then we have one for the Academy as well, which as soon as I stop sharing, I'm going to go in and grab all this stuff and put it into the chat, so you guys can just kind of cut and paste. But why don't we take any questions that you guys have, or Jan and Sharon, anything else that you want to share?
I'm not unmuting. Okay.
We couldn't unmute.
Mhm.
8 years on Zoom, and
Yeah, I hit the button and it wouldn't unmute. It was like lagging behind for some reason. I think we do have a question. Jade asked the question: how strict are you regarding credit scores in the case where the income looks good, but the credit is under 500?
You want to take that first and I'll follow up, or you want me to take it first?
yeah, we'll take it first. That's dependent on what we're going to do with the house. So we do a lot of owner finance lease option, so we will be a little bit more flexible with the credit, as long as the income, like, we have a lot of weird questions on our questionnaire to start with, but basically will take a little hit on the credit because uh, one of the reasons why we kind of got into the lease option land contract for sale was because we found so many people that didn't qualify for a bank loan, but they had really good jobs, they had really good payment history, but they had a medical zing or a student loan zing. So it really prohibited a lot of people from getting those bank loans when they were actually a very good candidate. So we go through some, again, relationships and trying to meet them and see what they're all about. Ask some different questions that aren't on most questionnaires about, dog smoking, like if you have pets or if you're smoking, not dog smoking, you know what I meant. If you have if you have dogs, what are you going to do? You're going to take care of your dog and not pay the rent. If you smoke a lot, you're going to need those cigarettes as opposed to paying the rent. Like, do you have anybody that you can count on that, those references? It's not about, hey, tell them I'm a good person, but it's like, hey, are you going to be there when I call and say I need rent money, or if I need help with the mortgage or the electric bill? So we will, be a little bit more flexible on the credit, and that was a long-winded answer on that. The rentals are a little bit more strict because it's just a rental, but we're trying to do the affordable housing for people that wouldn't necessarily have a place that they could call their own.
So kind of ditto for us. There have been so many issues with hospitals like charging crazy amounts to people that didn't have insurance and stuff like that. So there's a lot of credit that has been dinged because of medical issues. So we will prefer, someone with a certain credit score, but we will always look and see if someone does have a low credit score. If there are medical issues, we will disregard those. If they're not paying their cell phone bill, we're going to say no, because if they're not going to pay their cell phone bill, they sure as heck aren't going to pay, my rent kind of thing, right? But medical, I totally get that. Thankfully we've never been in that situation, but I know a lot of people that have, so we try and be understanding and do the right thing, if you will. One of the things that we do actually do for rentals, and again, I totally get with owner financing and stuff like that is different. If we have, and actually Miranda taught us this, if we have someone with a less than a good credit score, and there might be a couple of other issues, we will have them have someone that does have good credit, or something along those lines, actually co-sign the lease and be responsible for the lease, like when someone co-signs a loan, right? Kind of thing. And then in that instance, we can say, listen, if Joe doesn't pay the rent, Mary, we're calling you, and legally you're obliged to pay the rent, kind of thing. So in that respect, we're helping them by kind of saying your credit score doesn't have to be here, but at the same time, their friend is helping them and saying, listen, I think you can pay the rent, but if you can't, I'll kind of back you up, kind of thing. So it's that fine balance, because if you're too friendly with your tenants, they will absolutely 100% take advantage of you. And you're human. You're like, oh my God, you lost your job, the car broke down, kids need sneakers, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if they don't pay their rent, you don't pay your mortgage. If you don't pay your mortgage, they foreclose on your property, and then you're out of the house, right? So you do have to be very careful. And I don't know, maybe you guys want to talk a little bit about that, because you guys do have some relationship with some of your tenants, and what your experience has been, or what you do to kind of mitigate that.
Yeah, I think that was something we really had to kind of pivot from, because we were the ones in the day-to-day taking the applications, talking to them, and you do get caught up in people's their lives and things that happened to them, and then it got very familiar, for them just to shoot a text and say, hey, I'm going to be late because my car broke down, or hey, and that is another one of our questions: what year car do you have, and what kind of payment do you have? And that's not, because if you have an older, and how many miles, so if you have an older car that's going to break down a lot, then you have to kind of account for that car going to break down? A, if it breaks down, they don't get the work, so they don't get paid. And B, if it breaks down, it's going to have a lot of issues where it causes mechanical stuff. But it just got very familiar with them just to text and say, hey, I'm going to be a couple days late. Hey, I'm going to be at the 15th of the month. Hey, I can't pay this, and you get caught up on, their kid's sick, or we had one tenant that their adult daughter died, and they're kind of taking over the kids, and so like this, it's just different stuff. So we kind of had to distance ourselves. We hired people, so now they're the ones that can be the kind of the badass, and they just they'll say, I'll check with the owner, but then basically they just come back and say, no, you got to get it paid somehow or another, and then they typically pay it. So it's different coming from you as opposed to somebody else.
And if it does start off rocky, it's going to continue to be rocky. So
It's so much
if
worse.
they're already going to make excuses for second, third month, it's not going to go good. If you have a good tenant and they've been in like 9 or 10 months and paid earlier on time and had one little slip up 1 month, later in the game, and pay a week or two late, that seems to work out better. They've already showed the track record and they've done the right thing, but you kind of know as soon as they start making the excuses from the jump.
And important for your property manager to also know how to get those things from governments, or however, some help if they do stumble. So that's not something that we're always doing in Indiana. Case in point, our property manager is very good about that. So during COVID, we didn't miss anything. He was able to get them in a program right away. He knew how to do it. He knew how to do the paperwork, and got them. We have a tenant in Gary right now who's has had issues here for quite a while, and basically the government's picked it up, and he's known how to do that, so it's not skipping any months. And they're 3 months ahead. They pay 3 months ahead, unlike Maryland, who we've had some issues with our folks
in the program. And James is right. If you give that to someone else to do, then it frees you up to fill your pipeline, make the money, go out and make the relationships to do more business and money making activities.
That's awesome. Anybody else we have a small enough group, you can just unmute and ask. You don't have to type it in. Even though, Jay, thanks for doing that, but you don't have to. And it can be about this, it can be about anything residential, multifamily. It doesn't have to be specifically about markets. But it can be any kind of questions you have, that we can help you out with. Latanya, did you get my email?
With
what?
spreadsheet, or the
Yes.
link with the realtors?
Yeah.
With the spreadsheet, the
both.
plan?
I sent you the spreadsheet,
Yes.
and then I sent you the 2 realtors not to work with in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
You didn't get that one? Okay. Oh, if you don't get it, if you don't see it, just let me know and I'll resend it.
Okay, and you said not to work with. Good
Yeah,
catch.
so I reached out to one person that had brought us a couple of different things on some new construction. And I said, okay, maybe they do, multifamily and stuff, and it turns out that they really don't. Or if they do, they usually do much bigger projects. And then I reached out to a guy, one of our students, that had bought either 100 or 101 units in Dayton, right out of the gate. And he said, these are 2 brokers that we work with. We would never work with them ever again. And those are the 2 names that I sent you. So that's kind of people to stay away from, kind of thing. So
Yes, I'm reading it now.
We're in
Yeah, well-
Ohio.
I'm from Cincinnati, so I'm looking at the Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus markets.
Gotcha.
Are you part of
because
the
they're all drivable. Even the Indianapolis, Indiana, because it's only 1 hour and 15 minutes away from my home there in Ohio.
Do you know where Marietta is?
Marietta, Ohio? Yes.
Okay.
Is that close to you?
It's drivable.
We can just buy a really cheap house there. That's all.
We're wondering whether we should do it or not, if it's a good market or.
Then we just started the research on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I drove up to Canton, Ohio, where the Football Hall of Fame is. That was a nice little drive from Cincinnati just to check out a storage facility up there.
Nice.
It's funny, I never think of Ohio being really big, but I guess it's
Right?
pretty,
Yeah.
It's got so many major cities there. It's
Mhm.
right, yeah.
what makes it
'Cause
unique.
Funny
So-
thing is, from my house, I can get from Cincinnati to Indianapolis quicker than I can get from Cincinnati to Marietta, even though Marietta's in Ohio. Indianapolis is
Wow.
closer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
That's
funny.
funny.
I think one time we flew in for a conference or something and we went into Kentucky and then we were right there in
Was it Cincinnati?
Cincinnati, I think.
It is.
Actually.
Our airport's in Kentucky, CVG. It's weird, but yeah.
Yep, okay, yep.
That's
it.
where we went, yes, and then across the river.
Right across the river. Yep,
Crazy
What's
stuff.
what town is across the river?
that's us.
What?
Oh, the town in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Covington,
that?
like you
Covington.
Covington.
That's, yes, I could not.
So it is? Okay, all right. Cool.
It's a pretty area there where the river is and the
Yeah,
restaurants and little river walks and areas. It is pretty.
it is. If you like a good boathouse and meal, that is definitely a place to go. They're doing some development down there. I actually just found out about a co-op group that is helping investors if they want to get in on doing stuff along the river. Yeah, so I just
Wow.
found out about it. So just kind of doing some research.
Awesome.
Sounds kind of like Path of Progress. I don't know, You think?
Right?
Yeah. There's a company there, 3CDC, that's buying up everything for like pennies on the dollar. But then if you want to buy it from them, it's just a couple of mil.
Right.
Right. What kind of company is it? Or what kind of
Is it like a hedge fund?
I think it's like a hedge fund group or it's a large group of investors because they're buying up a lot of small building small areas, but they're all small buildings or structures that are right in the heart of things.
interesting?
They're buying smart.
Very much so. Very much so.
I'm gonna pick on Carlin. So you do a lot of Airbnb and short-term rentals. How do you identify your markets? If you're
Oh, with
even
the
there.
midterm rentals? So with the
What?
midterm rentals for the travel nurses, I'm pretty much in a really good market for that. So I would identify them around hospitals that have specifically do more triage style healthcare, and they also have like a certain amount of beds. You want something more than 100 beds for if you're going to do midterm rentals specifically to travel nurses. I've shifted away from short-term rentals. I find like midterms a little more lucrative than short-term, and as well as regarding like the turnover, I just like to have them in a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you want like secondary MSAs, probably. The primary ones are a little bit too big, secondary, tertiary. Again, based on how many hospitals, how many beds, and you want to be within probably a 15-minute drive from those as well. So that's kind of how I would look for them.
Why the triage?
Well, you want to have something that's got more critical care. So they have more need for travel nurses in those areas.
Okay.
So there's different levels to hospitals. And I know Nicole can speak to this more because she has a healthcare background.
Mhm.
But you want something like where they're going to be doing the operations and the surgeries right there at the hospital that you're catering to for their travel nurse housing.
Interesting.
Good to know.
Yeah. Well, because some of the other ones, like the smaller ones, they'll hold them there until they can get them to these larger ones. So there's
So they
more.
wouldn't have the need.
Yeah, there's more of a need in the locations where they're really the end of the line for doing some of the treatment. So it's just a bigger call and need for more diverse skill sets in those markets. I hope that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. I'm just thinking about something. So I'm helping somebody buy a 36 unit in Baltimore. And I'm starting to think, Hopkins is in Baltimore. So I'm wondering, I don't know I'm just kind of helping her on the phone and online and stuff like that. I haven't actually driven out to the property. But I'll bring that up to her because that could be, I know that do you do just the houses or do you also do, because we had talked, I think, a little bit about this, like doing like a small apartment building or something.
Yeah, I do more of the individual like bedrooms or like a complete unit. I haven't done them with the larger multis, but or well, smaller even. But I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, there are people who do that model. I just haven't completely shifted them all over. But yeah, I think it would be more beneficial because you're going to have the same type of tenant pool in the same property, so you can expect to have a more of a selling point for that. And they can all just kind of like bounce stuff off of each other and be in the same kind of atmosphere, if you will. I don't want to say like a dorm type of thing, but you're not going to be worried about being in an apartment building with other folks who have, different, I guess, different goals than you do. So,
Right.
it's going to be respectful to your needs as a travel nurse. Because again, some of these folks work overnight, some of them work during the day, and they're all just really professionals there to do the job and, do the best they can. So you want to provide housing that accommodates that.
Makes total sense. So no rooftop bars or anything like that?
No, maybe a rooftop lounge where they could read a book and chill, maybe
Oh,
grill out,
yeah.
but no rooftop bars.
Those are very popular in Baltimore because most of them are flat roofs.
Yeah,
Oh,
true.
wow.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
Then you have University of Baltimore, the shock trauma area
Yeah,
too,
shock
and then you
trauma.
have a couple
Yeah.
other hospitals right close to there. So that would be a pool with several different hospitals. That would be a good idea for that 36 unit.
And I'm wondering also because personally I don't like Baltimore City because I know you can get good deals and the spread is good and stuff like that. And I don't know this from experience, but from what I've heard, it can be a little challenging to get people evicted, right? So it takes a long time.
Yep,
We know
So-
from experience.
I can speak to that.
So I'm wondering if someone did short-term rentals or nurse rentals, I guess, in Baltimore, if you could avoid that whole situation,
That you could,
Yeah.
that would be the
Smart.
probably one of the only ways that I would do rentals in Baltimore, the
right?
city.
Colin, you ever had
Yeah,
to
good
evict
thought.
anybody?
Not for midterm rentals. I have for like unfurnished, typical rentals.
Right.
And he was actually a really good tenant. He just kind of made a few, decisions that weren't ideal for his lifestyle and just kind of spiraled downwards. But when I screened him in the first place, he was, past all the no red flags, So I think if you haven't gotten an eviction or sued once, then you're not doing it right.
I'd at least get sued. Come on, that's part of the game, right?
I'm over here knocking on wood.
We have another group that we're part of, and the guy lives in California and he does a lot of it's just mostly single family homes and maybe small multifamilies. And he said that he gets sued all the time and he loves it. He does not mind it at all. I've never heard anyone else but this guy say that.
He's also an attorney, but I think
Yeah, so
in
Oh.
a previous life, but I guess he has fun with it. But I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, he loves it. He gets excited when he gets sued.
And we didn't ask him originally, but he just kept saying, "Oh God, I got another lawsuit." And so we thought he was a lawyer, like handling. He's like, "Oh no, these are mine." It's
It's like,
like,
how are you getting sued so many times? I don't know if that's
So we have some new people. Any questions from you guys? So we have Melissa and Lena. I think I've seen your name before. Roy. Is it Bali or Billy?
it's like Bally.
Do you own the health clubs? Is that yours? Are they even around anymore? Bali's. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Carlin has an incredible way with words, and she's very diplomatic in terms of, he made some life decisions which were maybe not the best ones. Like,
right. Absolutely.
awesome.
Code for drugs.
Yeah, I was gonna- That's what I was thinking. But it's like, wow, what a nice.
Carlin, is there a
way?
way? This is Latanya. That I could get you.
Did you think the same thing, Latanya? You knew what it was immediately?
Yeah, I was reading between the lines, just being a therapist. I was like, oh, he got addicted.
Yeah, to something.
Yeah. But Carlin, I was asking, I sent you a direct message. I don't know if you received it.
Okay. Oh, you think I'm awesome and you want to buy me a Christmas gift?
Sure, I have a bag of Halloween candy that has your name
I see. I'll give you my contact info if you want to hit me up
all
about
over it.
rentals or anyone. I'll put my Instagram in here and my email.
Yes.
Hit me up.
You can put it in the main one if you
That's
want.
okay.
To.
Okay. Just want to make sure it's okay with you guys. Sure.
And the time we all got the same message. You sent it to everybody about buying Christmas presents for everybody. So thank you.
Oh, we all get
Yeah.
Christmas presents. Where should I send my list to?
Just put it in the chat.
Hello. I just want to like maybe introduce myself real quick. This is Melissa. I'm not really sure how I got here, but I'm actually enjoying this conversation. But I'm not sure like where in what of the groups or how did I got here. I have it for the last couple of weeks and I couldn't join the last week, but I was like, oh, I'm sure I was trying to really join. And I'm glad I did because there's a lot of like good information, like the travel nurses and stuff like that, that I actually thought it was like, wow, this is really nice to know. I would agree with her, and I prefer to do midterm or something, or even co-living instead of doing the short term, because I think it feels like the vacation thing is not going to be forever. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to like comment and say hello and just say how. I mean, what group did you guys come from? If I don't know, like, is there like a Facebook group that you guys posted this? Like, how did I got here?
So I don't know how you got here.
I
But
don't know, but we're glad you're here. I don't
So there's
know.
I'm glad I'm here. I'm just trying to like maybe
Where are you?
pinpoint.
Where are you
like,
from, Melissa? What state are you in?
I'm in Florida.
Okay.
Might have been from one of
I'm
Yeah,
in the
we're in
group of
Florida.
like I'm in the creative sub 2 group with Pace Morby. So I'm not sure if you guys are like in any of that. Like I go to so many Zooms, I don't even know who's who anymore.
Might have been one of our mailing lists because we're in Florida. So it might have been
cool.
attached to one of
Yeah,
our mailing
'cause-
lists. Because
Okay.
what kind of investing do you do?
Well, I'm looking to do. I'm a gator, which is like I do private lending. So some of that I do PMLs and I do small EMDs, and I'm looking to buy creative deals in subject to, which makes it easier with the interest rates that right now is kind of like pretty
Right,
difficult.
absolutely.
Yes.
So looking to buy a couple of things in Palm Beach. I'm in the Palm Beach area, so Palm Beach
Okay.
Gardens, North Palm Beach. Yeah, so I'm looking to buy, and I'm always like looking for new groups and looking for new places to maybe like interact and see what other people are doing, and if anybody's a wholesaler and they might have deals, I'm looking to buy. So I'm definitely looking.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's
Well, I'm
where
glad
I'm
you
at
showed up.
today.
I don't know how you got here either, but we'll,
Glad to have you.
we'll make sure that we
Yeah.
add you. If you're not on our mailing list, we'll add you to the mailing list, and that way
Yes,
you get
please.
the notification each week.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, awesome. Well, welcome. That's great. It's pretty
Yeah, so
funny
you
we both
guys
live in
do
Florida.
both multifamily and residential, is what I just found out, right? Because I'm also
Right.
interested in getting into the multifamily soon enough, but I think I'm gonna start just with residential first,
Right.
and then just find my way up.
Right. Well, so
But
I
yeah.
think we were talking about this, Nicole and I were talking about this the other day, that I think a lot of times when people look at multifamily, they're like, wow, 100 units, that's, I'm not comfortable with that, kind of thing, or whatever it is. What we usually recommend to people is start small, start with like a 5 unit or a 7 unit or a 9 unit or something like that. And kind of get your feet wet. It's easier to get into those anyway, and they're less expensive. And it kind of takes the some of the shock of all those zeros away, right?
Yeah, and I think it gets treated differently, right? If it's like more than 5 units, it becomes a multifamily, and then it becomes a business. So the underwriting process, it kind of changes into more of like what's in the area and everything else
Mhm.
regarding the population and the jobs and this and that. Which when you do just maybe like a unit or two, it doesn't really. It's a comparable of the home next door, so it's a
Right.
different type of comparable, which
Mhm.
is very interesting, and I think is very like detailed and like thorough. When you do a multifamily, it's kind of a little scary if you will. It's a
Well,
lot.
so what I like about multifamily is that it's all numbers, right? The numbers, you go into our spreadsheet, you put in the numbers, it spits out the numbers, and you go, okay, that makes sense. Or, something that doesn't make sense, next, kind of thing. And so again, I haven't done residential in years and years, so I'm not sure, but I do remember it was, trying to get comps and trying to build to the same level and stuff like that. To me, just seemed, I guess I just wasn't very good at it. Maybe that's what it was. But I find multifamily, believe it or not, easier. Because what you're basically doing is you're kind of buying a business, but what you're really doing is you're buying a cash flow, right? So you're buying a cash flow stream, right? And so you have the opportunity to buy a cash flow stream. And if you see areas where you can improve the cash flow, right? That's what you do. But at the end of the day, it's you're buying cash flow. And if you keep buying more and more cash flow, obviously you keep doing better and better kind of thing. But it is a little bit of a different mindset. But
Honestly, now that you said that, I mean, what I do for a living, I'm actually a property manager, so this should be much easier to me, right? You would think
Right.
like, but I manage office buildings, so I have 2 office buildings and an HOA that I manage right now,
right.
which I understand the bigger picture of the the rents and the politics of like the residents and this and that. It's just I can totally manage all that. I think the numbers is what maybe scare me a little bit, but I've been to the Tyler class, the Hawaiian guy that does this, like I think his name is Tyler or something. So it's the guy from Hawaii that does the multifamily event or whatever. So I was to one of those like 3-day events with him, which I thought it was very interesting. And honestly, the goal is to quit my job and manage my own buildings, right? That would be like amazing if I could do that. So I just don't, and I have been like talking to people in multifamily and groups that are like, so there's this group that I met at that place, and they they bought the mentorship, and then they did their first deal, and it took them a year to get their first deal.
Yep.
And then since then they haven't done a second one. So it does take a lot of time and effort. That kind
So
of makes me a little bit nervous. I'm like,
right.
how hard is it? Like if I guess the syndication is what takes the effort or the time or the right. It's more the syndication than the actual buying the deal. I don't know.
So we are super, super conservative, right? When we look at properties. So we walk away from a lot of properties that maybe somebody else, will buy. And I think that to find your first property by far is always the hardest. No questions asked, always the hardest. And you look at a lot of deals, but the idea is if the numbers don't work, don't go, oh, look, I've looked at 15 properties, so this one must be good because I looked at 15 and I'm tired of looking at properties, right? You got to keep going. But they're there. And the syndication and the way we teach it, like the guy I was training today was basically, look, you talk to people about investing and you look for deals all at the same time, kind of thing. And as you go along, all of a sudden you find a deal, you talk to these 5 people and you're like, hey, you remember we talked about I was doing multifamily, whatever it is, here's the deal, you want to take a look. And if they do, great. And if they don't, there's tons of money out there, kind of thing. So I think people do get a little bit I don't want to say frightened, but it does look overwhelming, but it's really, I mean, I say this, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay. So it's really not that hard. You just have to be, like anything, persistent. And in terms of property management, Nicole is almost always on here. Unfortunately, she wasn't feeling well, so she's not on. But when you come back next Tuesday, if she's on, maybe she owns 2 property management companies in addition to, you know, obviously tons and tons and tons of apartments, plus a bunch of other stuff. So there might be a connection there that maybe she can help guide you or kind of give you some advice in terms of what she's discovered in terms of property management and transitioning to multifamily and stuff like that. So just an idea, you know, if you want to come back next week.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Are you guys on like Facebook? Like, you have like a Facebook group that I can get added, or like, how do you guys get together other than this Tuesday?
So we are, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead? Jane, you're about to say something?
I was just gonna say, also I'd recommend your class that you guys are gonna have. We're excited to get up and kind of delve into multifamily and that 4-day class. And it's not, you know, it's not like a normal, you know, there's the Guru Fest where you go in and get just enough information to get you in trouble, but you guys really dig deep into that class. And yeah, so we're excited for that. And then we have the virtual REI Academy Facebook page.
And we're just, I'm just not very good at social media, so I need to be a lot better. We've hired a person that started to do that. So I'll send everybody the Facebook pages and stuff like that. Most of the time we just kind of interact on these calls, and then we kind of, you know, text each other, email each other and stuff like that. And then within the community, there is a community private page for the students and stuff like that, for multifamily. We don't have that yet for the academy, but we will at some point. So good call out. I guess it's something we definitely need to work on. But you know, the other side of that too is that you know, people just I always tell people, look, call me whenever you want, right? Kind of thing. I'll help you in any way that I can, but like, don't call me every day, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
So in
get
that
told
respect, it's
there.
nice because, you know, Jane and Sharon the exact same way. It's like, you know, something, how can I help you? You know, kind of thing. And you know, we'll go to a certain level and probably go too far, to be honest with you. We help too much. But you know, until it gets crazy or whatever it is, you know, we'll continue to do that. So all our contact information is in there in the chat. All our emails are in there and stuff like that. So feel free to, you know, reach out to any of us. And you know, if you shoot an email over something like that, and then you want to talk, you know, I'll send you my Calendly link. I'm not sure if, do you guys have that same thing, Jane and Sharon?
No, we're old school. We got to get that set up too.
Okay.
We just set something up, we'll text people
Send
and,
my Google phone.
and say, hey, what's a good time for you, and kind of collaborate
Can we
that way.
make like a text group or something? I don't know. Sorry, how do we like do this? Do you have at least like a normal Facebook profile I can follow or something, at least to like
So we'll
Oh, yeah, we have Facebook pages,
Yeah.
just
Jane
Our,
normal.
our
Jane?
name. Mhm.
no, actually I'll find the actual Facebook pages that we have for everything. Let's see.
I tell you, Melissa, if you can manage an HOA group, you can manage anything.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, they are a handful for sure.
Are
Yeah,
you in,
it's a
are
lot
you,
of what?
are you in Palm Beach, like up near Tampa, or West Palm down?
On the
West
other
Palm Beach.
coast, though,
Okay,
Yeah,
West
West Palm
like
Beach
near
and East Side.
Fort Lauderdale side and all that.
East Coast.
Yeah.
We're up in Sarasota,
Oh wow, cool.
Gulf Coast.
On the Gulf side.
So Sarasota, is that like by Vero Beach?
No, we're on the Gulf side, like an hour south of Tampa.
Oh yeah, you're on the other side.
Yep.
She said that like you're
That
on
was
the
like
other
you're on the
side.
other side
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
like thinking,
tracks.
I thought, yeah, because I thought it's like, oh, I was getting excited. I'll go see you. I was like, I was gonna go like meet you. But it's kind of like 4 hours, I think.
Yeah, it's about 3.5, 4 hours down Alligator Alley.
Well, we could try to get some kind of together thing at some point.
All right, so
Yeah,
put
yeah.
both
Yes,
Facebook pages in there.
thank you, James.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
And when you go in there, maybe the easiest thing is just to PM us or something, or DM us, or I don't even know what it's called. I guess I'm not on there very often.
Virtual
Messenger.
REI
Messenger us, right? Is that
Academy.
it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna say hello before I forget, and gonna just say hi.
Speed of implementation, I like it.
Oh, this guy has like a answering and everything, no? Yeah, cool.
Oh,
I just got the
for the multifamily one, it does ask you for, I think, what your experience is and stuff like that, and then you get admitted, so you can't just go directly in, if you will. So it's like 2 questions, I think. I don't know. I didn't set it up. Someone else set it up a while ago. So just so you know.
This is cool.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well,
Passive cash flow for life.
Yep.
Nice. I like it.
so anybody else have any questions we can help out with, or?
Any comments?
Going once, yeah, comments, that's good too. No, okay.
I was trying to mute myself, but if anyone's looking to partner on deals or have good deals, I am still looking, James, and I can speak to that, looking at 100 deals before you get to the one. I might be on
Right.
65 now, so I'm still counting down.
Yeah.
Just put the
Same as
blinders on, just
residential.
keep going, So
Yeah.
as soon as you get that first one, the next one will take you like 20 or 30, kind of thing. So
It's a lot quicker than you start coming down the hill and build up momentum, that's for sure.
absolutely. Actually, I've gotten a bunch of calls from different students recently. I've gotten like a ton of calls over the last month. I don't know what is going on. I was talking to Jane and Sharon about this, but like people sending me deals and asking me to partner and doing this and doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Maybe I'll try and connect a bunch of you guys together or something like that, because 1, 2, 3, 4 of you guys are in the DC area. So maybe we can have you guys all come up to the meetup, and you guys can kind of, if you feel comfortable, you can exchange numbers. If you don't, then you don't have to, kind of thing. Because you're in DC, right, Latanya? You just go up to, I think we talked about that, right?
Yeah, I'm in Baltimore. I just go to Ohio a lot because I have
Right.
another home there too. Yeah.
Right, okay. Is that your vacation home? Is it on the water? Do you have a yacht? Your second home?
I would inherited home. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, well, that counts. All right, so I guess if nobody else has anything else, it was wonderful seeing everybody. Always great. If you guys need anything, obviously, please feel free to reach out to us. And like I said, this will be on the both YouTube channels in a couple of days. Okay. Thank
Awesome.
you all.
Awesome. Everyone have a good night.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.